Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and do you want to open up the exhaust on your BMW Z4? I'll show you how. All right, y'all, so I'm really excited to get this done. I want to walk you through what we're going to do here first. Now, this is the new catback exhaust from AFE Power. This is probably one of their very first customer installs, and I'm really excited to get this done. I'm going to walk you through the install and all the DIY so you can do the work yourself. Now, make sure to check out the before and after video that will be posted separately. So if you want to hear what it sounds like, make sure to check that out. Now, the G29 Z4 doesn't sound too bad stock, but this is a great way to bring a little bit more volume, a little bit more growl to your exhaust. All right, let's jump in, let's get started. All right, y'all, so the Z4 will not fit under my Quickjack, so you're gonna see me using a combination of jack stands and a large floor jack and other things to get the car in the air today. Always be super careful, as always, the moment you have your car in the air. Do not be under it in an unsafe fashion, all right? I'm definitely safe. I've got redundant systems to make sure I'm not gonna have a problem. Now, taking down the exhaust here, we're looking up the exhaust line. You can see a cross body brace right here. That's gonna have to come off. It's got the bolts here at the end, the two in the middle, and one on the end. I'll have those bolt sizes for you in a second. When we look up the exhaust, and I'll show you a little bit closer in a sec, there's a hanger, and then there's one big clamp all the way back up at the top. So, we're gonna start by taking this cross body brace off, and then we're gonna start at the top, loosen that clamp, loosen the hanger, and work our way down, okay? I'll have this size for you in just a second. Okay guys, so we're looking up the exhaust line here. You can see up at the top, we've got the OEM clamp here up at the top. You can loosen that now if you'd like. That is a 12mm nut on that, and then spread. It's kind of a clamp. It's like a V-band style clamp. So go ahead and loosen that and then just loosen it up. Now you do have a 13mm nut right here. We're gonna leave this on for a few minutes as we work our way back down the car. Now remember, we took that cross brace off, but here's what we're not going to do. As we work our way back down the car, as you can see, you've got a single exhaust path that comes down into a branching exhaust path right here. And then the branching exhaust path gets all the way back here to these cross members back here on either side. So what we're gonna do is a little bit different. Because the path of the new AFE exhaust is different, we're actually going to cut the exhaust twice. Now in the official BMW guides, when it talks about changing out your exhaust and doing other things, they're even cutting it. If you were at the dealership, they would cut it right here at the mark right here after the resonator. There's a mark here, there's a mark here. They would replace the resonator, whatever it happened to be, and they'd put in new clamps right here. Because what you have is this crossbody brace right here, and this is very strong and very complicated to take out. It's got big bolts here, it's got big bolts on the other side, but there's an easier way of doing this. If you cut here, the upper section will come down. Don't take that upper brace nut off yet, because you'll hold that upper section in place, right? But if you cut here, the upper section will come down and will separate away from your downpipe. The rest, when you look at this, you'd have to take all of this off. You'd have to take these big bolts out here and here, big ones over here. Forgive the shady lighting here for a second. But all of these things would have to come down unless you cut it right here. If you were putting in M Performance exhaust or also an upgrade, BMW would cut it right here, and the same thing on the tractor marks here on the pipe here. So we're gonna cut just below the resonator, and we're gonna cut here, which is gonna separate these pipes out. We don't have to go through all the trouble of taking these cross braces out, which is going to be significantly easier. Okay, so I have a good tool called a Hackzall. Get a Hackzall, and with these marks, you can make a nice even cut through the pipes. Make sure to use eye protection. Don't get hot metal into your eye. It sucks. So I'm going to cut the pipes here, here, and here on both sides. I'm going to cut the pipes back here as if we were putting in M Performance exhaust here and here. And then this is all going to come down in sections, and it's going to be a lot easier and faster than if you actually had to take these crossbody braces off. All right, so go ahead and cut the pipes. All right, super easy. So now both of these are cut. As you can see, I've already fed one of the pipes out because it's cut back at the back box, just like I said, if you're putting in a different exhaust back box. So the only thing that's holding this upper section in place now is that hanger and that 13mm nut way up at the top. So what you can want to do is slide up, brace this end, hold it up, undo that nut, and then feed it back here towards the tail of the car. If you have that upper kind of V-band brace essentially loose, you'll just feed this off and it'll come right off, and you can feed it out from underneath the car. Go ahead and take these sections, go ahead and take it off. If you haven't loosened this mid-body hanger yet already, so go ahead. That's a 13mm nut here up at the top, and then this hanger comes off. and then you can feed this pipe out, and then we're gonna feed the back box off next. But go ahead and get caught up to there. We'll get the back box off and we'll start to get the new one installed. All right, y'all, so looking up the exhaust line there, you can see the entire exhaust line is out. We've let that middle section down, and you have to work the pipe down off the slip connection from the downpipe. It can be a little tight, just be patient and just wiggle, 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 and it'll eventually come off. You get those cut sections out that we took out, and then we're back here at the back box. So you're gonna have two 13 millimeter nuts on each side on your hangers. You're gonna want to unplug your valve motor, so go and unplug that. You don't want anything to happen to that. So then go ahead and take down these nuts. What I'll usually do is, if you do have an extra set of hands around that's handy, you can do this by yourself. You just kind of brace it up with your knee, do it on both sides and then drop it down. But then go ahead and take both of these off. You're gonna have to use a 13 millimeter and an extension to get both of these off on each side. Go ahead and drop the back box, and then we're gonna start working in the new parts. All right, so it's really going to help if you start laying the components out in the orientation where they're going to go. So I've got the back box and I've got the new one with the two primary pieces we're going to work with first, just so they make sense. So you're going to want to transfer the hangers. So these will just come off these posts. I usually will just work them off. There's also a tool that you can buy, but I find it's kind of hit and miss with the tool. So just make sure to work this off this post, put it on the new post in the same orientation right here, do the same thing on the other side. Now, the other thing we are going to do, forget the shadows here, guys, is we're going to transfer your exhaust valve motor to the new section here. So we're going to do that in a second. So go ahead and get your hangers transferred over, and then we're going to take this off. These should be 10 millimeter nuts. Go ahead and take these off, and we're going to move it over, and we're going to attach it with the new components to the new exhaust path. All right, so the hangers are transferred. As you can see, it looks really, really good. So those are ready to go. And this is relatively light, so it's gonna be easy to rehang. Now, this is in two sections, so when you hang one side, you know, these two pipes are separate. Don't forget the clamp. So as you start to lay out the new parts, go ahead and lay out the clamps that come with it so you have the right clamp in the right place, right? So you have 2.5, you have 3-inch clamps, lay them all out in the right places. And don't tighten that down yet, but when you hang this, you can take this end, you can fit it in, you can tighten it, you can snug it up just a little bit so it hangs straight. And then we'll get that next section up from here up next. Okay, y'all, so as you can see, the pipe is in place, and I just want to share a couple of tricks. So I fed it in from this end, so moving towards the front of the car. You can kind of snake it in, the pipe is relatively straight. Now, if you notice, I don't have the hanger on right here, and that's really important, because I was able to feed it in, and then with the hanger right here, the hanger is now on this side, sticking this direction. So you feed it in where you can get it just past the frame element right here. And then if you notice the gap, do you see the gap right here? So once you get the post of the hanger past, you can turn the pipe, and that frame hanger will come through that gap right there between the frame and the heat shielding. You can turn it, you crank it around until it's pointed the opposite direction, and then just feed it the rest of the way up. Now you can put the hanger on in the correct orientation and go ahead and put the nut back on to hold that hanger in place. I've slipped it into the back section, and I've got the clamp here just loosely to help hold it in place for now. Okay, next we're gonna move up towards the top. You have the two V-bands with the resonator in the middle. So we're going to hang the top pipe and then hang the resonator in the middle. Okay, so you can see this upper section is now on, and that only leaves the resonator with the two V-bands in between. It's nice to get this section on next because you have this hanger that's going to hold it in place, so you're not trying to balance multiple pieces all at once. Make sure to put your large clamp at the top. I believe that's the 3-inch clamp if I remember correctly. So you slip the sleeve onto your downpipe with the clamp in place. That's a 15 millimeter nut there on the clamp. Now that one in general, because it's a fixed position back here at the hanger, and with that clamp, you can at least tighten that down reasonably. Then we're going to come back down, and we're going to put the resonator in place with the two V-bands. I'll show you what that looks like next. All right, so you got these little flip V-bands. These are actually really nice. So this lever will come around and will flip and connect. So you'll want to hang the resonator in the middle. The top side is flanged, the bottom is not, but they'll match anyway, so you can only put it in one direction, the way the flanges work. You can see I've got a little gap in the flange right now, but you'll just take it and you'll just flatten it up really nicely. You'll bring the V-band over the top of that, and then go ahead and crank the V-band down, just snap the lever down, and then these will be tight. So at that point, all of your exhaust line components are in, and we'll talk about fitment next. All right, so you can see that the resonator is in and the V-band clamps are tight. Go ahead and tighten them down, and don't forget the nylon locking nut that goes after it as well, because since this is a straight pipe, these tight will help hold it all in place. You can tighten down the clamp at the top as well. Go ahead and put your cross brace back on with your 13 millimeter bolts all the way across. And these are just snug. They're not down super tight. Now what you will want to do is you will want to put in a small spacer between the pipe here and your cross brace to make sure that you have enough space as we move this pipe and work on the fitment at the other end. You want to make sure you don't have any problems. So the install at this point, as far as technically, is done. The rest is just going to be fitment to make sure that everything works through and you tighten down all those clamps. So let's go back to the back box and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so you're down to kind of the art rather than science here at the last section where you're dealing with fitment. So as you walk and you tighten down all of these connections and you walk down your exhaust line, make sure you have no pinch points where anything's rubbing or touching. This fits really, really well. So there's a good gap here at the cross member. There's a good gap up there at our cross brace that we talked about earlier. So that's really good. There's no real rub points as we move through here. So as far as dealing with pipe fitment down the body, there's not a lot to look for. Just make sure you're not touching anywhere. And then all of your bands are down really nice and tight. You don't want these to move or leak or have any problems. Okay, so walking from the top, we know that the very top clamp is tight. As we walk down, we know that that bracket with that 13 millimeter nut is tight. We walk down, we got our two V-bands. Those are tightened down really well. Make sure that those nylon locking nuts are on as well. Check your fitment at the cross brace. Check your fitment here. At this V-brace, make sure that your 13 millimeter nut up there for your hanger is tight. That's good. We've got our clamp here is tight. And then our last clamp that we have to deal with really is right here. Now, the one thing that's different about this is that you can also slide your back box kind of right and left, as well as tip it up and down. Tipping up and down, you want to match it in alignment to this side, because this is going to be the fixed side, and that'll help you orient. And then you can slide this a little bit right or left to make sure that your exhaust tips are centered in your diffuser cutout, and then tighten this down. At that point, it's all done. The one other thing you need to do is don't forget your exhaust flap motor right here. So it's shorter, it won't reach. So it's on there's a little peg that it sits on right here. So you pull it out of there. I pulled these two 10 millimeters here and here so I could get my hand up in further, because the wiring harness goes up back behind here and there's another clip. So if you pull the clip back here, you pull the clip right here, it'll reach, and then go ahead and secure those 10 millimeters back down. So at that point, everything is done. You'll want to put your exhaust tips on, and you can just orient them however you'd like to get them set up. You know, you can put them in real shallow or real deep, just depending on how you want those set up. But at this point, you can put it on the ground, fire the car up, and make sure you don't have any metal on metal, anything else like that, and you can hear what it sounds like. All right, so double check, get your tools out from underneath, and go ahead and put the car back on the ground. All right, guys, so one last thing, you can see the exhaust tips are on. We have the carbon fiber options from AFE, and you can adjust your depth. And this is where you can really set it up however you want it. But the normal angle is with a rake. So the outer one is in a little bit further, the inner is out. In this case, it's kind of even with the trim across the back, and nice and even on this side, as you can see. So looks really, really good. All right, go ahead and wrap up, clean up, put your tools away. All right, you also go ahead and wrap up and put your tools away, and there is one additional thing I want to add. Now, hopefully you've watched this video from the beginning before you started your install, but you might be asking, what about that horseshoe pin that goes between the motor and the exhaust flap on the new exhaust? Now, when you install the motor on with those 10 millimeter bolts, you'll notice that that pin that comes out of the bottom of the motor has a groove in it. On the new side of the exhaust, there's a pin that comes up from the exhaust flap that also has a groove in it, and you just match those grooves up. And then you just squeeze that kind of that U-shaped horseshoe pin, slide it in, get one arm on the motor side, one arm on the valve side. Now, all of that said, I always want to make sure to check it. So if your motor's in a closed position, and say, for example, you put the valve in an open position when you install it, then the motor's going to be trying to go the wrong direction when it opens and closes, which can burn your motor out, which can be about a $150 mistake per motor. Ask me how I know. So make sure to check that. So the one thing I always do whenever I'm done with an exhaust swap or I've swapped the motors over is when I first test the exhaust and I'm testing for leaks or anything like that, I check the motor operation to make sure it's swinging and that valve is opening and closing, and if need be, I'll adjust that pin. Just make sure one arm is securely on the valve side and one arm is securely on that flap side in the new exhaust end. Other than that, you're all done. This isn't a hard project if you followed it along, and I am really grateful for AFE for making an absolutely fantastic product. I love the way this sounds, and on that note, please make sure to check out the simultaneous exhaust video that I released at the same time with this DIY. That way you can actually hear what it sounds like. So thank you to AFE for making a great product. I really appreciate you watching. Please make sure to click like and subscribe. It makes a genuine difference to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on my next project.